Hello, welcome back to Adventure 82. So today, we're at the Railway Museum. I was going to film this Railway Museum last year, and my phone died because we did York Minster and stuff, and I overestimated the ability of one GoPro battery. I still haven't bought any more. I really should do that. Either way, museum's that way. Right, so just been through the main entrance. This is the layout we've got. So at the moment, you normally have the station hall, and then there's normally another section as well here. These bits are across the road from the section I'm in, and they're the ones that are currently under refurbishment. So you can see the station hall's reopening again in September this year, so we'll come back and we'll definitely have a look at that. But for now, we're here, literally where the blue dot is. We're about to go inside and have a look inside the Great Hall. I'll also take you to have a look inside the North Shed. You can see here what it's done is it's labelled different trains that are in here. But there's one special visitor today in the Railway Museum. And do you want to tell them who it is? There we go. Right, so this way. Right, so what we have here is one of the older trains in here. Definitely not the oldest, but one of the older trains in here. This is Henry Oakley, number 990, used to be run by, as you can see, the Great Northern Railway. What I think is amazing is that some of these trains you can actually like climb on board and have a look at the driving and stuff in them. This one is the Evening Star, and this specific train was the last steam train running on British Rail before British Rail retired steam. So always have a strong place in history with the Evening Star. What I also find quite interesting about the Evening Star is if you come around the front, it's got these little like panels at the side, either side of the front, to try and aid with aerodynamics. But yeah, built in 1960, came out of Swindon, was the last steam train built. Last one running by British Rail. This one, on the other hand, I wonder what the build date is on this one, actually. It should tell us on the maker's plate. Let's have a look. But I know it's much earlier. I think it's like 1920s for this. Let's have a look. Builder's plate is just up here. Yeah, so Doncaster, I'll see, look, 1898, so yeah, definitely, like I was saying, one of the older trains in here. They also have, which I think is quite cool, they have replicas of the old Manchester to Liverpool carriages that would have once upon a time been pulled by rockets. Rocket obviously built by George Stephenson, but that's a stunning piece of history right there as well. Now when we came last time and I was trying to film, one of the, or a couple of the trains were missing. So one of those trains that was missing was in fact Lodestar, which is normally sat in the middle of the massive turntable they have in here, because all these trains still work. And there it is, it's back again. This turntable obviously still in function as well. To check out this, it's quite an unusual diesel. I like this one. I like the way it looks like it's got like multiple eyes, a bit like looking at the front of a spider. So at this point, diesel was still very much a functional thing. This was 1957, this one was built, but diesel carried on for much longer than steam, and it was considered far more viable than steam, especially by British Railways, hence the British Railways logo, and this carried on running for some time. But look at the size of it. It's absolutely massive. Absolutely stunning too. I always love, with diesels, what I always love is the rumble that you get, the unmistakable rumble you get from a diesel locomotive, and yet somehow they're always completely different to each other as well. So they're similar but never exactly the same. And you go from like something like this here, which coincidentally is the same train that Emily was based on in the Reverend Audrey stories. Hence the massive wheel here, and the same on, is it Emily, I think it was, to something that's a bit more bare bones. C1. So this one has an interesting story, this C1. Originally called Q1. I may go into the story of it at some point, but you can see there's no safety housing on the wheels or anything like that. And you can see here that this one's fared quite well. This one here, the tender's missing, so you can actually see also inside the firebox, which is really quite cool. I do like that feature. And then if we come around here, you can see it's been stripped back. You can see some other bits as well. You can see in there as well. Look at that. And then now we've worked our way round. There's your close-up of Stephenson's rocket. It's a remake. It's not the original, but shows you how the inside worked. You can see all the steam coils and rods inside the steam engine. So that would have been where the steam was, and you had your boiler here, and the steam came out through the dome at the top. And you can see the size of these massive piston rods. And then with no other real way to store water back then, because this was still a new invention, that's what the barrel was for at the back. So all your water went in this barrel here. If you look at the back, you can actually see on the top, there's a black funnel where the water was poured in. And you've got another quite elaborate looking train here. Not sure about this one, I've seen this one before, but it's very nice. Look at the brass dome on this one. What's this one? This is, oh, it's the Furness Railway number 3. So this is another, this is probably another one of the old school trains, again, before they started with their safety features, trying to make them more aerodynamic. This was more functional based design, but still quite elaborate in its way, because look at all the brass that's in the wheel arches. And considering how much of it inside, if you look, is wood, because that's where your coal would have been, and then the hole at the bottom here is where the coal would have been shoveled out and then put in the firebox there. And the piston on this one, unusually, is right at the top up there on top of the boiler. It's out in the open, which is what you don't normally have. And then this one's looking a bit worse for wear though, because look, you've got some little holes in it now. Looks strangely a bit like bullet holes. I don't know if this was maybe running during one of the wars, maybe. But there's also another type of steam engine here before we finish looking at the trains that I would like to show you. So I'll take you to have a look at that next. Right, so Charlotte, who's here, they're all here, but there's Charlotte. Kindly notice that there's these stairs that we're stood on right now. Allows you to actually look inside Evening Star's firebox.
Not just firebox,
and driver's chamber. So you can see, because we just thought with the basic ones, and you'll see one of the basic ones in a minute. There's so much more in here. They have pressure gauges. They have various controls to control the pressure, speed, and where that steam's going at any given point. And then the coal box, you can see here on the tender, has a much greater capacity than on the earlier trains. And it's got a massive label there saying handbrake. And then you've got one here actually that says water pickup, so that would adjust how much water went into the boiler.
There's like little steering wheel things.
Yeah, they would have adjusted how much water was going in at any point, or steam. There's so many more controls there. The driver had so much more control there to what he had in the earlier trains.
If you use that, you
So,
can see like what's
and there's
in
some
there.
even more controls here that you can see through the window. Hopefully the camera is not just picking up the reflection, but
It's picking up
that's
the
really quite
reflection of
cool.
your finger.
But that's really quite cool as well. Now, if you're familiar with any of my videos, you'll know that I did the Old Jersey Railway, specifically what was known as the Western Railway, which ended at Corbière. But that also had a little offshoot off that line, because originally that section of the line was built to help move the stone for the quarry in Jersey. That had a winding engine in it. The building was still there, the winding engine was long, long gone. It wasn't a Weatherhill winding engine like this one that's in front of me, but this will give you a good idea of what it would have looked like. Now, this isn't just a normal winding engine, because this is where Helper Charlotte comes in. Over here, there is a button control on the wall. And what Charlotte's now going to do is press the green button. Yeah. And that should allow it to work. But I don't know if they've activated it. Is it locked?
It controls whether it's off or on. Here, look.
Oh, it's off. So you're normally able to turn this on and off to see it working. They've got it turned off at the moment, so that's a bit of an anticlimax.
However,
My bad, I apologise, I should have checked first. That is a very, very cool winding engine there. You can see size of the cogs and the pistons on this thing. To install it just in here as a temporary thing would have been something on a massively grand scale. So you can imagine trying to install this in the day when you didn't have the lift equipment they probably used to put this in place. Also, you can get models of these now that you can actually use at home, and you can light them and the engine moves. I would love to get one of those. So if I ever get one of those, I'll definitely feature that on the channel. But for now, we need to go and look at some more trains. Charlotte, just before we go though, is absolutely fascinated
that spins.
with the tap. Yeah, that's the water control, because it would have pumped water.
I can't reach.
Yes, but you don't need to reach it. You're
I'm
not.
sure.
Yes, but you're not meant to reach it in the first place.
That's boring.
Don't be boring. Right, so to the trains. Right, so one of my favourite bits in here is actually this. It's not an actual train, as you can see, it's a massive gate. But what it is it's a gate, and it's the only real remnant left of the original entrance to the old Euston station in London. Because the original one, which was made out of massive chunky pieces of stone with Euston written on top of it, was removed when the station was renovated and rebuilt, because they decided it didn't need to be quite so grand. Most of the stones of which of that entrance were actually dumped into the Thames. There's been multiple talks over the years, and one of them being quite recent, about replacing the old grand Euston station and putting the stones back where they once were. Whether that will come to anything or not, I don't know, but it's definitely a wonderful piece of railway memorabilia that probably doesn't get as much credit as it deserves. Anyway, we'll go look at some rolling stock now, I suppose.
Let's touch.
You've got another little stunning engine here from 1880, one of the little tank engines. one of a couple of engines that, again,
Bits aren't attached anymore.
were featured in the Thomas Audrey stories. Charlotte's being nosy inside,
Because there's bits that they've
and
detached.
you can look at the back here. This one's got kind of like a little boot box. Look at that. And if you look inside, you can see this one, everything's brass.
There's bits that,
Look at that, everything's brass.
There's bits they've unattached that they've kept in there.
That would have been the little coal box.
Yeah. There's
Some bits have
in it,
fallen
I don't know
off.
where they came from.
And then you've got your little hatch here, which is where the water would have been put in, because for the water box. You got your little brass one up here. Stunning thing. Stunning little thing. People underestimate how much power these little 6-wheel tank engines had. You know, they could pull some reasonably serious weight, some of them, for like their size. It was quite incredible. We've got another LMS carriage here. Now, I don't know much about this carriage, but the colours on this are very reminiscent of the Metropolitan line colours in London. So I don't know
You're not Jaeger.
if this was something to do with that.
You're not Jaeger.
And look at this one. This is an old school American style train, because everything has to be bigger in America. But it's still an impressive structure. Look at it. What's interesting about the American ones is you can see all the workings and the piping, and there's so much in there. Look at it.
Daddy.
The wheels are just gigantic. Look at them. So much piping. So much piping. So the Americans were running these for years. These are the ones that used to run through like the deserts and stuff, because their their coal tanks, coal tenders were so large. Well, I'll show you. So that's all just for holding coal. This is why the American trains are bigger, because they were going such long distances. They needed massive tenders to be able to go the distances they went without having to stop every 5 minutes. And the way to do that, they found, was to put a massive tender on it. But then that also meant that they had to pull longer trains, so then they had to make the front section longer to give it more power, so it could pull the long train for the long distance it was travelling. And they used to use slightly smaller versions of this for things like mining, logging, and lots of other things that are now in America have been taken over by trucks. These are stunning things. Right, so there's a couple more modern trains I'd like to show you, because there's some more modern ones here yet to have a look at. But before we do that, I've made you a little musical montage, so let's have a look at that first. Right, so a large portion of you who watch my videos will know this train behind me is the old Japanese bullet train. Now, definitely one of the most impressive things in the world, and the headlights are on. But what I like about this is you can see there's a ramp here. We can actually go and have a look inside the bullet train, and I think that's exactly what we shall do. Right, so there's a video on display in the bullet train, so I can film it for you, but I'm not going to be able to talk because I'm going to ruin what the other people are listening to. But let's go in and have a look, and we'll talk about it once we're out. On my way out the bullet train, and check out the signals. It's like a whole tower of them. The old metaphor signals, they're really quite cool. Right, so next one of our attention is just here, and that is the old Eurostar. So in 1989, these, along with a very large workforce of several thousand, started building the Channel Tunnel. And they started building the Channel Tunnel to connect, obviously, England and France. And then that was finished in the 90s. And then you had this second feat of engineering come along, the Eurostar train. You have actually put it in a section of tunnel similar to what they did when they built the actual tunnel for the Eurostar itself, the Channel Tunnel. And they've even put, you can see the cabling in, all the electric cabling, to show you exactly how it was done, and that would have all been lined over. But look at it. You used to be able to go inside, hence the stairs. You're not allowed inside anymore. But that's one of the originals. They've been changed and modernised since then, and I believe Eurostar now also own Thales, which if you've been on trains in Europe, you'll be familiar with. If you're not familiar with Thales, they're quite a popular train company, or were till they were bought by Eurostar, to kind of interconnect countries. You could go from Paris on Thales all the way to, I think, like Berlin was, I think, the furthest afield you could go on Thales. Actually, I think possibly even Austria. But yeah, so they've got like a little experience thing here, which isn't operating at the moment. But look at the Eurostar. But the next one, next train we're going to look at, isn't quite as modern as the Eurostar, but it's definitely one of my top 2 favourite trains in the world. And here it is, one of my 2 favourite trains in the whole wide world, the Intercity 125. Now, I've never had the pleasure, and it would be a pleasure to be able to ride on one of these, and I hope someday I will, because thank God there are still a few in preservation. However, I remember watching the adverts for these things in the 1980s at home in Jersey, where I grew up, just being in awe of these things, thinking, wow, and looking at how fast I went whoosh down the train with the Swallow logo and everything. Always want to be able to ride on them. But obviously they retired in 2016 and I only moved over here last year, which was 2024. So a bit late to catch them running on main lines, but I do hope to catch one on the heritage line. But the Intercity 125 epitomises to me that kind of fundamental change that happened between diesel and electric. It showed how good electric could be. This one obviously I think still has diesel in it though, because it's got massive coolers. It might be solely electric, I'm not sure about the workings of the Intercity, but I remember they're just a stunning train. Always loved the things. Right, so that's all the trains that we're looking at in the main area. This is an interesting little train. I don't know anything about this one. So anybody knows anything about this little train, do let me know. But there's two legends here that I'll have to look at. And one of them is just behind me there. And here we are with the first of two legends we're looking at today. So this is our first one. Look at it. So the Mallard itself, I don't think they run it anymore. Its cousin's just been on a run, Sir Nigel Gresley. He did a special train for Easter, I believe, and it did another one for a steam gala on one of the heritage railways. Can't remember which one, but the Mallard seems to be the one that sticks in the head of everybody, because of course the Mallard famously, and still does, hold the speed record, as is commemorated here on the actual Mallard itself, for being the fastest steam train in the world. Something that will never be defeated because His Majesty deems it unsafe to go so fast on a railway these days. So, and they're not powered by steam, so it wouldn't count anyway. But modern trains are obviously all electric, so. But 1938 out of Doncaster. Again, one of the, obviously the younger trains, nowhere near as young as Evening Star to come out of Swindon in 1960, but stunning train. A wonderful blue. She wasn't always blue. At one point, she was actually painted green because British Rail repainted her. She was restored to blue later on. But what I think is quite interesting, and I think we should do this as well, I've just noticed, and it's not because the stairs aren't big enough, it's because I'm too busy talking to you to notice. But you can actually come and have a look at Mallard's driver cab, so I'll be a fool not to look. Let's have a look at this. Look at all that. Always amazes me, there's so many levers, and I don't know if driving one of these trains is anywhere near as complicated as it looks, but absolutely stunning piece of engineering there, absolutely stunning. Look at all the gauges and brass, and still very shiny. I like the way they've got the little coffee cup in the middle. Right, so our final stop and legend number 2. Right, so we're now in the North Shed. We've exited the Great Hall, and that's because probably one of the most famous engines in the world is back temporarily on a visit before she goes off again on her visits around the UK, taking people for special rides and stuff throughout the summer. Now, if you keep up to date with trains and where they are and such, you'll already know what I'm talking about. But for those of you who don't know, and this is why it's so hard for me to choose between which is my favourite train out of the 125, the Intercity 125, and this one, I would say they're probably tied. Favourite steam train? This one you're about to see. Favourite electric train? The Intercity 125. But there she is, see, the Flying Scotsman is temporarily back home. She's only here for April, so It's currently the Easter holidays here in the UK as I'm visiting, which is why the Flying Scotsman's here. Easter holidays end on Wednesday next week as I'm filming this. The week of Easter, Good Friday's tomorrow. And then she's back off next week on Wednesday to wherever her next pit stop is. But look at her. Now, one thing I've always found interesting as well about the Flying Scotsman is it did famously did a trip to the United States. And obviously we mentioned before when we're looking at the American train, the United States, generally the railroad trips are far, far longer than they are over here in the UK. So when Flying Scotsman went over to the UK, she actually had 2 tenders, not 1, because otherwise she couldn't carry enough coal. But yeah, look at that. So Flying Scotsman being one of the first we've seen today who actually has coal in their coal box, because of course she'll be leaving under her own steam in a few more days. But she's got her British Railways tender today, I believe. Yep, there we go, see the British Railways logo. And that is one hell of a tender. Now, I've got the GoPro here. Let me see if I can show you what's inside the tender. I don't know if this will work, but hopefully it will. I have no idea now what you guys can see until I look at this on the editing suite, but hopefully it's a good one. Also, check out this picture they've got of her on the wall going across the viaduct. That's pretty awesome. That's absolutely insane. Right, so this is my 3rd attempt at trying to see Flying Scotsman, because we've been here twice before, but both times she was out and about on her adventures, so she wasn't here. And the closest I got was the model, which is this here. But I've now actually managed to see her and I'm very pleased. And look, tiki blinder. So, that would be the last of the legends to show you here. We've seen a replica rocket, we've seen Mallard, and we've seen the Flying Scotsman. If we come over here, you've got one of Flying Scotsman's tiki blinders, which you can see down here. Here we go. What I think is also interesting is, I mentioned before, as we look at the tiki blinder, I'll turn the camera around now, how I did the Jersey Railways. Now, in the last, I think it was like about 3-4 years of what would become known as the Jersey Western Railway, they were running rail cars. They weren't running actual trains anymore, they were running rail cars because it was more efficient and it made more sense for a small line. The rail cars they were running were actually similar to these, because the rail cars they got through the GWR, because the GWR had a agreement that went alongside the, now if my memory serves me right, the LMS, where they would offer you to take you by train, like I say, in conjunction with LMS, down to South Coast. You're able to get a ferry and go across to Jersey. It was an actual advertising thing. But yeah, I just thought I'd show that to people as well. And they have so much stuff here for you to come and look at if you come here yourself as well. Look, the North Shed is full of various memorabilia and stuff. Now it says on, I'm trying to remember, I think it's Wikipedia, we all know how right Wikipedia is, they're right all the time, that Some of the old nameplates from Jersey are here. I've never been able to find them, but if they are here, they're not on display. But it's been a stunning visit. Absolutely stunning visit. Thank you very much, Railway Museum. Right, so that's it from us here at the Railway Museum. It's taken me, the first time I came to the Railway Museum was 2019, so it's taken me the best part of, what, 5 years to be able to actually see the Flying Scotsman in the flesh. It meant a lot to me, actually, because we had a family member who used to be one of the drivers for the Flying Scotsman back in the day, related to my grandmother. But yeah, stunning, stunning train. It lives up to the hype. A lot of things are overhyped these days that don't live up to it. That's not one of them. But from Blade, who's very interested apparently in this rail car, Charlotte, who's trying to show you off her handbook sneakily like I won't notice, I'm not blind, and Charlotte Blaze, who's trying to sneak into shot because she's a massive fan of the Flying Scotsman too. We'll see you next time. Don't forget to like, subscribe if you did see. Right, I can use mine.